Is stress making you gain body fat? Is it taking years off your life? And also, is it making you unhealthy day to day? I want to talk about stress in relation to your metabolism and metabolic health. So firstly, let's talk about metabolic health, what it is at its core, right? Because this is the series that we're on right now, and this is pillar 2, right? We've done sleep, we're on stress now. Now, metabolic health at its core, another way to describe it, is essentially the harmony between your hormones, blood sugar, insulin, which is a hormone, and your energy output. There's more to it than that, of course. Human metabolism next to the human brain is like the second most complex thing. All this to say, though, I wanted to think of this analogy as well when it comes to your metabolism. Think of it like a bank account, right? Let's say, your system's healthy. You can handle big withdrawals, right, without going into debt. If not, even small withdrawals will leave you stressed and drained. And essentially, as a result of that, you're going to gain body fat. If you're stressed and fatigued, you're not going to be able to sustain what you're doing with food, with training, or even sleep will be impacted, right? So what I like to say, though, as well, when it comes to what I'll get into now is stress, pros and cons, it's not all bad. There's some benefits to having stress. You obviously need it, right, to grow and to get results and to actually just live, to build your immune system up. But what gets measured can get managed. With my clients, for example, we test these things. So there's no point in guessing in terms of where are my hormones at? What's my blood sugar levels like? I wonder what my lipids are like right now, my cholesterol, and then we can't just go by how you feel. Now, I'm always hammering home to clients to pay attention to these things. Obviously, we need to look at, okay, my clothes are getting smaller when it comes to weight loss and health. My visceral fat's dropping. I am feeling way better. My mental clarity is better. My cravings are going down. These are really important metrics that everyone has to pay attention to. But you have to get the data, right? Just like, I guess, tracking your food. DEXA scan, for example, will look at your visceral fat. It'll look at your bone density. It'll pick up on how much muscle you have on your body. So blood tests as well, regular. Don't guess with your metabolic health. Don't guess with your overall health. Get your bloods done regular, every 3 to 6 months. Another way to look at visceral fat is obviously an MRI scan, which Dr. Sean O'Mara talked about on here as well, right? So I wanted to just kind of get that one across, that don't just guess these things. If something's off and you're feeling like you're flagging, something's wrong, your energy's low, the likelihood is you may even have a nutrient deficiency or you could have some other stuff going on. So a little disclaimer there. So let's get into the pros and cons of stress, I guess. Now, stress, my friend, in relation to metabolic health and how long you live and body composition, it's not the enemy, it's actually essential. So I always like to talk about the stress bucket. You need to have water pouring into your stress bucket every single day for you to be able to adapt and actually get stronger, not just stronger in the gym, for example, right? Lifting weights, that's a stress on your joints, on your ligaments, on your muscles, but it makes them stronger and it even builds your bone density, for example. Cold water exposure, for example, right? That's going to build up your resilience to cold weather. It's going to build up, strengthen the heart vessels, the vessels around the heart, the blood vessels. It's going to do all kinds of things, right? Fasting is another example. It's an added stress on the body. So look at that stress bucket. If you add too many of these things on, when you look at life, day-to-day stress, work stress, personal stress, training, even one night's poor sleep, which we touched on the last episode, is going to fill that stress bucket up. But you need some water going into that stress bucket for you to actually build resilience, build a robust immune system, and get stronger. We look at so we look at lifting weights, cold exposure, fasting, even being in a calorie deficit, right? Burning more than you eat is a mild stress on the body. Hell, even driving your car is a stress, right? All these things, looking at your phone, like I mentioned last time, working in front of a screen, cortisol, elevated stress. When we look at quote unquote bad stress though, right, like chronic sleep deprivation, constant worry, anxiety and depression, nothing's going to stress your body out and make you feel more fatigued and off than those things, of course. And look, these are things with my clients as well, we're open and honest about with my clients, because I don't know why we all look at mental health as if because it's invisible, right? I'm not going to go off on a tangent too more about this, but I am passionate about this in relation to stress. We look at what's going on in the world right now, depression, all those kind of things are higher than they've ever been, right? Mental health issues, and I've struggled with this myself before, as I've touched on. But the bottom line is, I look at this with my clients and look at, right, let's have a look what's off. Let's have a look at what we can do in terms of monitoring the amount of stress that is coming into your stress bucket so we can not overflow that bucket and essentially have some way of exerting that stress without overdoing it with training, for example, and actually adding fuel to the fire with stress. So another type of, I don't want to say bad stress, but another type of stress that is going to damage you essentially is poor recovery as well, right? If you're not recovering properly from workouts, you're aching longer than you should be, not even soreness, that's just one metric, you're feeling tired. You feel like you need to have a nap every day in the afternoon. That's not right. Something's off. Stress overload, probably something broken with your sleep, maybe something to do with your nutrition as well, right? There's a few moving parts. Now let's look at the impact now on stress on hormones and metabolism. When we look at acute stress, it basically it boosts cortisol and adrenaline, right? Which sharpens your focus and mobilizes energy, right? Think about that. Again, go back to evolution. You have a predator trying to hunt you or it pops up out of nowhere. You get acute stress, mad rush of these stress hormones, sharpen your focus, run as fast as you can. You know what I mean? To get away from this thing because it's going to pump blood into the where it needs to be, into the extremities, so you can get away from it, right? So this is this mobilizes energy, but this is where people go wrong because they mistake this level of energy for natural energy. And it's like, oh yeah, I've got loads of energy all the time. You know, I'm amped up all the time. How much sleep do you get? 6 hours max. Okay, not right. How much coffee do you have? 6 a day. Okay, this is not real energy, right? Look at caffeine as fake energy. I love my coffee, but that's fake energy, right? Is the way to look at it. Natural energy is just getting a good sleep, hydrating in the morning, having your electrolytes or salt with lemon, for example, and boom. That's your energy, right? And do you get crashes in the daytime or do you get sustained energy? Again, going back to the afternoon crash, people normalize that. Not normal. Shouldn't be getting that. So these are all signs of, potential stress overload. We look at chronic stress, right, which is, like I mentioned last time, it's just an elevated level of stress. What it does is, because again, when you haven't had to adapt to this before, this day and age we're living in now, right? AI technology, all this stuff is amazing, but we're on our phones more than ever, right? We're in front of a screen, and ultimately we're sitting down for prolonged periods more than ever. We move less than any other time in human history. We've got more food available to us than any other time in human history, right? So you add all these things on to chronic stress, right? And stress overload, that is going to mess with things like insulin sensitivity, right? It's going to lower testosterone levels as well. Like I've said before, when you look at, just to simplify it, when you look at cortisol and testosterone, it's a seesaw. Think of a seesaw. If you've got cortisol too elevated up here, naturally the testosterone levels are going to drop because they're like antagonists. They work in opposite directions. So when it goes the other way, for example, today I noticed a difference. I'm going to give you an example here. I'm going to mention some supplements at the end. I swear it made a difference. Well, number one, I had some sunshine, which can work wonders for your testosterone levels, right? Probably one of the best things, actually, if you don't overdo it. It's not one of the best things, but add that on top of the big rocks like strength training and stuff. But I actually took some ashwagandha and theanine for the first time in a while. Now, ashwagandha is an adaptogenic herb which buffers cortisol. And I actually noticed straight away, I felt different. I felt less stressed. I'll be honest, I even felt my libido kick up out of the blue. I was like, where did that come from? It was probably the sun as well, right? Because that's going to boost testosterone. But I'm going to start taking this for 2 weeks now and do this. But all this to say, cortisol drops, testosterone levels go up, right? Generally. That's just to simplify things. And obviously it's going to reduce recovery as well, like I mentioned, right? Too much stress. Now, let's look at gut and sleep impact as well. Obviously, stress is going to distress the gut-brain axis, which can impact digestion and cravings. Look at emotional eating, for example, right? Look at the main emotions in terms of what causes people to overeat. Stress, boredom, right? It could be anger, tired, right? All these emotions, most of the time people eat based on emotions. Like that's just how people eat nowadays. They've lost touch with true hunger and they just eat based on feelings, essentially, right? So obviously it's going to have a massive impact on your decision making with food. This is actually mainly what's making people, we could talk about the ins and outs of metabolism and metabolic health, but really it's simply the decision making with food. When you're stressed, when you're bored, when you're anxious, let's just talk about stress, anxiety, even loneliness. That's a type of stress, and that's a bit of an epidemic right now, right? It's going to have a big impact on your decision making with food, right? And it's going to cause you to make poor decisions at times because you're eating based on feelings as opposed to true hunger. Now, if you look at like high cortisol in the evening, that delays melatonin, right? Now, melatonin, again, is going to have a negative impact on sleep because it's the most important hormone when it comes to sleep, again, which goes hand in hand with worse recovery from training. So it's going to kill your gains, and also it's going to prevent you dropping fat, right? It's going to have an impact on that because, again, poor sleep, we talked about that last time. Quick little knowledge bomb for you on this as well is, your metabolism doesn't care about calories, right? It cares about the environment you create with things like stress, sleep, and recovery. That's really what matters. And look, I wanted to say as well, on this series, I'm going to be giving a free assessment out just to you beautiful people in my podcast audience and YouTube. So if you want to see where you're at, get your metabolic score, get a plan so you know exactly what to do next, whether you're looking to build muscle, lose fat, or both, and optimize your overall health, click the link in the show notes. I put it there, and you'll get a free assessment and plan. And I send that over personalized as well. So you'll get personal contact with me, and ultimately you'll get free advice and a plan. So click the link beneath. Like I say, you're crazy if you don't get that, if you want to improve your health and get in better shape. I'm just going to be straight with you. So let me talk about how I manage stress now and some just key points that actually keep me, sane, number one, but also not just helping me survive, obviously thrive. Now, long story short, I put myself under a lot of stress because I'm an entrepreneur. I run a business. Any of you entrepreneurs out there, or even if you've got a partner who's an entrepreneur, or any family members even, you know what goes into that, right? It's not 9 to 5. If you actually want to be successful, especially in this day and age, right, with online, you got to be constantly adapting and changing. Lots of things are changing. You got to be on the ball. You're going to be working long hours. And what I find is, for me, I have to have these rigid strategies in place simply because the amount of hours I choose to work. I love what I do, right? I'm a bit of I don't want to say workaholic, but I kind of am because I actually enjoy it. So I have to have things in place like my walks, right? So I go for my daily walks. I do that after my meals, my 2 meals. That helps with digestion. Obviously, it helps balance your blood sugar levels out. And it's going to help boost your energy, and it's going to help you feel satiated faster, which is a big one with those walks after eating. If you eat and just go for a walk, you're not hungry, you know what I'm saying? Because you get a chance to get that signal to tell you you're full. But low intensity movement, regular movement as well. Like I've got this stand-up desk, and this is all relating to, I'm going to burn more calories because I'm stood up, but also I'm going to be dropping my overall chronic stress on the body because sitting is the new smoking. So if you sit down for prolonged periods, it's the equivalent to smoking in terms of how bad that is for you, right? So daily walks, low intensity movement, regular movement. That's number one. My friend, if you can just factor that into your day, people always think when they got to get their steps up that they've got to do these long walks. Just walk more often. When you have your meetings, walk and talk. I'll do that I like to do 90% of my client calls, to be honest, at my desk. So I've got my notes and everything else. But even some of them, when it's more kind of a relaxed one, I just go on a walk with clients. Whenever I'm speaking to my friends back home or my mum, I'm always walking. I never take any calls sat down and even with clients, I'm stood up at my stand-up desk, right? So walk and talk, make that happen. That'll change everything when it comes to your daily movement and your overall stress levels. Movement's medicine. Honestly, it's the ultimate stress reliever. I have a constant sleep routine. I mentioned this before. Obviously, I'm not as tight. Like I'm not perfect with it. Yesterday, for example, I was slacking, going against all the stuff I talked about on the previous podcast. I was on my phone till 9:30, right? And I went to sleep at like 10:30. Lo and behold, I woke up at midnight. I was awake for an hour, right? It has an impact, that blue light. That's even if I wasn't working because I was ordering books, I was actually anxious. Think about anxiety. I was anxious because I ran out of books. That's what happens to me. If I haven't got books to read in the night as part of my sleep routine, I get stressed about that. So consistent sleep routine, go to bed at the same time. Nothing's going to raise stress levels more and impact everything more than sleep, right? So that's obvious. Training with intention, right? But not over training. So I mentioned what I'm doing right now. I've scaled my training right back. The mad thing is, today I realized I actually look bigger. I look more muscular and solid and fuller than I have in a long time off the back of a 4-week training phase where I've been doing 2 gym sessions, lifting really heavy and doing full body. So say 1 hour, right? And then doing like 15-minute band sessions every day on the days in between. Sometimes I'll do 2 band sessions in the day. But when I say session, the first one might be 15 minutes. The second one, it might just be a light pump in the evening. Just literally, it might even just be arms, like biceps and triceps, or maybe, arms and then maybe some lateral raises. Just a pump, 3 rounds, 10 to 20 reps, bam, done. 5 minutes. But yeah, it'll be 15 minutes normally, 1 or 2 of those a day. And that is low intensity on the days in between. I'm definitely not overtraining, right? Because it's hard to when you're doing 2 a week, for me anyway. Now, you can overtrain. If I decided to spend 90 minutes on those sessions, for example, in the gym, even if I'm training twice a week, that could be overkill. Cortisol levels, stress hormones, they're going to be really, really elevated if you're training longer than like 45 minutes to 60 minutes. And it's overkill for a lot of people, unless you're taking steroids, which I'm not. So training with intention, that's how I manage it. I really spread that volume out. That's why training the full body, as I keep saying, at a moderate intensity, for 80 to 90% of people, it gets better results rather than doing high intensity bro splits, for example, because you're hitting the body parts more frequently. And if you're someone who trains 5-6 times a week, on the days in between, try the bands, or even if you go into the gym, just do 20 to 30 minutes where you just get a pump on the machines, maybe full body, or if you've got lagging body parts, work on the lagging body parts. You can have a sip of water is a good idea. Breath work. So I'm slacking on this too. So I shouldn't really be talking about this actually, because I'm really slacking on it lately. I was going to do it today and I never done it. But what I do notice, right, is on the Oura Ring, for example, I think I mentioned this last time, my heart rate variability, which is your body's ability to adapt to stress, it's higher when I do my breath work in the day. So really good tool, right? Factor this into your day if you can. And actually, maybe I should take my own advice. Just 10 minutes, 10, if you can do 15 minutes, halfway through the day, in the afternoon, recharge your batteries before you go back to work in the afternoon, right? I notice it works wonders for my productivity and I need to get back to it, but it also helps my body adapt better to stress. Breathe in and breath work is absolute magic for the body and lowering cortisol levels. Another big one, right, which has really been helping me is prayer. Now, it's a weird one, right? When we talk about prayer and being in touch with God and everything else, right? I'm not going to go too much down that rabbit hole, but long story short, over the last year or so, I have been getting more in touch with God, right? And actually, I've started going to church with my girlfriend over the last few months. I went to Catholic schools when I grew up, etc., and it kind of made me rebellious about it, right? I wasn't an atheist, but I just didn't believe, if I'm honest. Long story short, I've started praying over the last year to 18 months, and there's research on this now as well. Prayer, essentially, you live way longer, and it reduces anxiety and stress drastically. I can't remember what the percentage was. Insane. Anyway, you can look at all the research. I didn't need to look at that. I just know by how I felt and by doing it. And even a little hack I've noticed this week, a couple of times I woke up, actually, I never normally do, early hours in the morning, couldn't go back to sleep. So I prayed and I instantly fell asleep. So that's my new little hack, right? Now, that's been really, really helping me, if I'm honest. I pray before I go to sleep. So in the nighttime, I read my book. I obviously get my blue light blockers on just after this now because it's just gone 7 p.m. I normally have them on by now. And bam, I'll put them on 3 hours before bedtime, dim the lights down, no phone at least an hour before bed most of the time, right? And then I got my book I'll read normally, and then I will sometimes do journaling as well. I've got my journal is always there. A couple of times a week I'll do my journaling. Most of the time, 80% of the time, this is a simple hack as well when it comes to reducing stress. Just writing down what you've got to do the next day before you go to bed is simple, but literally writing down the most important things you got to do. Think about it. You have all these thoughts in your head and all these worries about work, for example. It's like a bullet ricocheting around your brain. Imagine that. Writing it onto paper gets the bullet out is a good way to put it. So simply just doing that makes the world of difference, right? So, yeah, and that's basically how, these simple hacks, and it's different for everyone. Look, what my routines are is not going to work for everyone else. But look, simply going for a walk in the morning as well is going to help you manage your stress. And another big one as well is just hydration, right? People overlook this. This is the most important thing. When you get up in the morning, a game-changing hack. Don't have coffee straight away. Have water. Drink a pint to a liter of water before you have your coffee, right? Change that one thing. I can't tell you how many clients I've done this with. They're like, man, my energy levels is crazy. And even better, obviously, I get them taking electrolytes, or even just salt and lemon. Salt and lemon is basically nature's electrolytes anyway. It's not quite as good as like some of the ones you can buy because it's the perfect ratio, but it does a trick just as well. In some ways, it's better, right? Because there's no sweeteners in it or nothing else. It's just natural. So doing that before you have your coffee, boom, makes a world of difference. But obviously, nothing's going to put your body in fight or flight more, make you more hungry, make you gain fat, impact sleep, mental health, than just not being hydrated, right? So I want to give you a few quick kind of client examples, right? Where I've had a few clients where they essentially have had belly fat, for example, is a big one. They've been stuck and they actually notice that they say, is something going on with my hormones, right? Something's off. And then when we peel off the layers, right, and see where they're at, it's obviously food needs to be tweaked a bit. But I noticed that actually their metabolism, again, is a metabolic adaptation. I noticed that because they've been in this state of high stress for so long and they haven't been managing that properly, number one, their metabolism has slowed down. So they weren't eating a massive amount, but they were gaining fat. Number two, because they were like kind of in that state where they were wired but tired, and they were having too much caffeine as well, particularly throughout the daytime, they were just stuck and they were gaining body fat. So it was a combination of stress levels high, and cortisol was playing a little bit of a part in that. But the biggest thing was just the amount of food they were eating was converting into body fat because their metabolism had adapted and their maintenance calories were quite low. So say, for example, sometimes I'll find they're eating, 2,500 calories, but their maintenance calories are only like 2,000, for example. So they're in a 500 calorie surplus without even realizing it, okay? So obviously they're gaining belly fat. And again, like it's the impact on the basal metabolic rate when you've got, when your stress hormones are too elevated, right? So your body's gonna go into that fight or flight. The basal metabolic rate is gonna slow down. So 70% of your total calories, 60 to 70%, is just by you not doing anything. It's just to keep you alive, your organs, your brain in particular, right? That uses up like 20, 25% of your total energy and it only weighs 2% of your total body mass, right? Which is crazy. So take all those things into account and it'll make a big, big difference. So that was one client in particular where that was exactly everything I said then with the calories. He was having like 5 coffees a day. And he also wasn't doing the little hack I mentioned then. He was just having coffee straight away. That made a difference to his sustained energy, just hydrating in the morning with electrolytes. And then on top of that, his metabolism had adapted by getting a bit more efficient with calories. This guy weighed a lot, so his maintenance calories should have been way higher than 2,000. They should have been like 3,000, right? And on top of that as well, just walking breaks and stuff as well. We factored in some walking breaks for him as well, which increases calorie output and had a massive impact then on his mood and his cravings. It's the ripple effect of these things. And not to mention then, over time, we stack these habits 1 or 2 at a time, by the way. And then it's obviously just making small improvements with sleep hygiene and all those kind of things that compound. There was another client as well, a female, where she'd been struggling. She'd been gaining the same 10 pounds for, I can't remember how many years it was now. It was like 4 or 5 years, gaining the same 10 pounds, losing it, gaining it back. And she's like, something's off. I don't feel, what I used to do before is no longer working, is what she said in her words. So then, again, we shine a light on things. I had a track for a week to see where she was at with food. She was actually, this is rare this happens, especially with females, she was actually having optimal protein, which I was like, wow, I was blown away by that. So it's not that. Okay, that's interesting. Now we had to go deeper. What we come to find was, when she got her bloods done, essentially, her iron was low, so iron levels were low. Vitamin D was low as well, and yeah, the cholesterol wasn't really that bothered about. And just by fixing those things, by having her eat a bit more red meat, I had her having beef liver as well, right? And she was one of the many clients that I have to get them taking capsules for this, who actually ate it. She started eating it 2-3 times a week. Obviously, with beef liver having 10 times the amount of B12, it has loads of iron in it. And then we added in some actually leafy greens as well, right? Because it was magnesium. That's what it was as well. She had further tests. Her magnesium levels were really low. So we threw in some greens as well, some dark leafy greens like spinach, which is loaded full of magnesium, avocado. She was already eating a decent amount of beef, which contains a lot of magnesium. And like I say, the beef liver she was having 3 times per week. And then we started dialing in her sleep and also had her taking magnesium on top of the foods. And yeah, that over time then, and she was already doing plenty of steps as well. Actually, she wasn't doing enough steps. We've got to move in a bit more as well. But bang, it was like a switch. When we fixed the nutrient deficiencies, we fixed her sleep. It wasn't about us, we changed the way she was training a little bit, but she was already doing strength training. We had to just get her to the next level. It was like a switch. This happens a lot of times without even touching anything. Just, boom, there's a nutrient deficiency or suboptimal nutrients. Fixes a lot of things. Strength training, bam, send a different signal. For most people, metabolism speeds up, boom, start losing belly fat, right? Simple stuff. And that happens time and time again as well when I change the training signal, because a lot of people, they've done high intensity training, then they switch to strength training, and they do it properly and appropriately, and they scale the cardio right back, in fact, and eliminate it, and just walk, fine-tune the nutrition, optimize the sleep a little bit, bam, their body responds straight away. They start dropping belly fat instantly, right? So don't be, don't overcomplicate it. We can talk about all these different things, but when it comes to strength training, it works wonders for metabolism. You combine that with high protein and you get an adequate recovery and you're doing enough movement, right? So you're not sat on your ass all day. It works wonders, but you have to do it right. There's a lot of nuance when it comes to training and your body's ability to adapt to that stress. All right, I want to kind of wrap this up, ladies and gents, with some supplements and foods that I recommend. When we look at stress, we're going to look at foods which contain serotonin, right? I actually had a client the other day, right? He was on the move and he stopped in the petrol station. This guy is dialed, right? Dialed. He stopped in the petrol station, and he's an Aura guy as well. He tracks his sleep with the Aura. And anyone right, who's tracked their sleep with Aura, if any of you listening now, or even Whoop, the big one is I don't want to eat too close to bed, because that's one of the worst things for your recovery, your HRV and stuff, right? And ultimately, he was on his way home, boom, went to the petrol station, got a banana and a shake, which he never does because he eats all his own meals and whole foods normally. And he said, I felt calm afterwards and I had a much better sleep. I don't know what that was. I was like, maybe the banana helped, right? Because tryptophan converts into serotonin. And you've got turkey, salmon, eggs, cheese, even oats, nuts, seeds, bananas, chickpeas, tuna, spinach, those kind of things. They contain tryptophan, which converts into serotonin, which can give you a calming effect in the evening. And you can get that with carbohydrates as well, like a lot of carbs generally are going to have that effect of releasing serotonin, which has a calming effect. So those kind of things can really help lower stress, particularly in the evenings, right, as well, those kind of foods. I wouldn't say just start eating I don't want to recommend eating loads of these heavy, high-calorie foods, though. Don't just start eating handfuls of nuts and cheese. Like, please don't do that. Forget about the tryptophan, right, because you're likely to gain a bunch of body fat. Don't go doing that. Get awareness with the food first. But that's some, kind of foods I wanted to mention there. Supplements, I mentioned ashwagandha. Buffers cortisol, improves sleep quality. L-theanine as well. I've got this one now. I'll shout him out, actually. Dr. Berg. I've just started getting some of his supplements. And there's one which is like an adrenal one, where it's got L-theanine, it's got ashwagandha, and it's got licorice root powder in there and a few other things. But they're the main ones. So L-theanine and ashwagandha. L-theanine, you get that in green tea, naturally, right? It helps promote calmness, improves focus, those kind of things, right? And one pair with caffeine. I used to do that. I don't do it anymore for some reason. When you pair L-theanine with caffeine, it tends to give you a nice, steady, a longer kind of buffer of caffeine where you don't get that crash as much. But yeah, ashwagandha, L-theanine, magnesium, glycinate really helps with sleep. And lower stress response, and also threonate helps as well with stress as well. But glycinate, I would say, is the one I recommend the most for sleep. And then there's even other adaptogenic herbs, then like Panax ginseng, which is an adaptogen which can improve energy and stress tolerance and stuff, right? CBD, I got a couple of clients who use this, but I got to be real with you here, right? It can actually be a problem with sleep. There's loads of research now that show actually CBD, it disrupts REM sleep, and it's not actually the long-term fix where a lot of people think it is. It can be used as a tool, and I used to take that, actually. I used to take the CBD with L-theanine and coffee, and it gives me a calming effect. That's a lovely combination, actually, if you do that in the daytime. But doing it close to bed, the CBD, it can actually be a problem. It can help with anxiety, but it can really have a negative impact on sleep. So I don't want to necessarily recommend that one. So look, I want to wrap this up with stress is just not something to eliminate, my friend, right? Remember, stress plus rest equals growth. You need stress to grow your muscles, to grow your body, but also to grow in life, right? To achieve things. You need that. Let's say you want to start up that business. Stressful as hell. You need that to grow, though, right? To actually learn and grow. So it's not something you want to eliminate. It's something you want to learn to master. And this is why no one knows your body better than you. You've got to learn about your own body, right? And it's guesswork if you're not getting your bloods done and you're not paying attention to where you're at. Like I've even got, not necessarily recommending this, I still haven't checked my readings properly yet. I got my DNA done as well to see what's going on with my genes. This is not just stress, but this is to see, loads of different things in terms of nutrition, brain health, Alzheimer's, all those kind of things. It breaks everything down, like the chance of you getting those things essentially. But long story short, when you pair stress with recovery, that's really when growth happens, right? So look, I'm working, like I said last time, with a handful of people at the moment. my one-to-one coaching program. And if you are ready to drop body fat, 3 to 5 kilos, so that's like 7 to 10 pounds of fat, and you're looking to build muscle and strength and really boost your energy and finally get an understanding of how to manage your nutrition and lifestyle once and for all, the link is in the show notes. I can't work with everyone. Obviously, I work with people that I know I can help. You'd have to qualify first and make sure you're a good fit. But it only takes 2 seconds to fill that form out. It's in the show notes with the metabolic assessment, which is free, by the way. So go ahead and, qualify to work with me. Apply to work with me or do the metabolic assessment. And then finally, I would like to say that that's pretty much it for now. Actually, I said the WhatsApp group, sorry. We've got this free WhatsApp group we've kicked off. So we're going to be kickstarting it soon. If you want to join the WhatsApp group for free and get a ton of value from me, basically, and people in the group, that'll be really valuable for you. So click the link in the show notes as well for that to be on the waiting list. The first few people are going to get free access to that. All right, ladies and gents, until next time, peace out.